Second criticism, similar to this one, is, well, how do you know there isn't another possible worldview out there that would work? This is not just that you haven't refuted all the alternatives. You haven't shown that yours is the only necessary one, because how could you know that another one isn't available that would do the same thing? I'm going to give you two different kinds of answers to this. You pick the one you like. Now, they supplement each other. The first is, in the nature of the case, there can only be one transcendental. In the nature of the case, to talk about two separate, and by separate we mean different content worldviews doing this, is nonsense in itself. It would be similar to saying there's two ultimate authorities. Well, there can't be two ultimate authorities, or they're not ultimate, right? So if somebody says, well, yeah, Christianity does the job. We can make sense out of science, make sense out of logic, make sense out of morality, human dignity, blah, 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 blah. It does the job, but maybe there'll be another worldview that can do the job too. We say, well, in the nature of the case, you can't have two ultimately authoritative worldviews. In the nature of the case, you can't have two transcendentals for meaningfulness. Why? Because if there were two, what have you lost? Unity. Coherence, unity, continuity is the name of the game here. Meaningfulness, intelligibility means coherence, means there's one system of truth. If there were two transcendentals, you wouldn't have one system of truth, you'd have two, and then what do you have to ask? What's the relationship between the two systems? If they are different, then you don't have unity. If they are the same, with the names being changed, then we don't have to worry about it. Then it's just a linguistic variation. Shall I go over that again? The nature of the transcendental program is to find unity or coherence in all of our experience. So you can't have two ultimate authorities. You can't have two ultimate systems of truth. Because if you have two, you no longer have coherence. You no longer have unity. You have to ask the question, what is the relationship between these two? And the relationship is either that of identity under different names or diversity. And if they're diverse, then you no longer have coherence or unity in your worldview. Even to say, now, something Mike was teaching you yesterday, if you understood that, this will make sense. And if you didn't understand this, this probably won't. To make sense of the claim that there are two systems by which facts can be made intelligible requires another system in terms of which you're saying that about the two. But you see, if these are by hypothesis, ex hypostasis, are the ultimate transcendental for meaningfulness, we can't get behind them to have the one that unites the two. And by unites, I simply mean to make intelligible that there are two. To even talk about there being two, there needs to be one perspective in terms of which you talk about the two. But these two that you're talking about are, by definition, ultimate. And so there can't be a one that unites the two, even to talk about their relationship. Okay? So when somebody says, how do you know there can't be another one out there? We say, the nature of the case, there can't be another one out there. There can only be one ultimate transcendental worldview. Because if there were two, it wouldn't be an ultimate transcendental worldview. You'd have to have one behind it that in one way or another makes it possible to talk about there being two. That's one way of answering. Some of you will like that. Some of you will say, what on earth was he saying? So let me give you another approach. The Christian worldview in the nature of the case has to be the only worldview that works. If it works, it must be the only one that works. Why? Because it claims to be the only one. That claim is either true or it's false. If it's true, then there aren't any other ones. If it's false, then Christianity is not a worldview that will work. So if Christianity is a transcendental, if there is one and it's Christianity, it must be the only one. Because internally it claims to be the only one. Sometimes you'll feel like, I've got a good grasp on that, and other times that seems real slippery. You say, well, The fact that it says it's the only one, why does that establish it? Because you're granting that it really is a transcendental of meaningfulness. If it really is, you're granting that it's a true worldview. But if you grant that it's a true worldview, then its claims must be what? True. And one of its claims is, this is the only one. If that claim is wrong, then the worldview is not as a whole true, in which case it can't be a worldview that's a transcendental for meaningfulness. The argument assumes there can be two true worldviews, ultimately. But on this assumption, Christianity couldn't be true, because Christianity says there's only one. So that's what we might call an internal demonstration that Christianity has to be the only one.
And also the person that asks that question has to provide a worldview in which he can make the question intelligible?
Yeah, in a sense, what you're saying is what I was getting at the end of my first approach to this, that you'd have to have now a meta-transcendental worldview, in terms of which you talked about worldviews, two of them being satisfactory to do the job. But if these are the transcendental, there can't be anything more ultimate than them.
Doesn't that go back to the issue of authority? You talked about.
There's an analogy to that, right?
If they said, well, how do you know it's the only one? You say, show me. Well, what is that based upon?
Yeah, when you raise this question, where are you standing when you raise this question? If you're standing in the absurd worldview, I can ignore you. If you're standing in my worldview, then my answer is the Bible says it's the only one. Mike, why are you laughing over there? Is it like too good to be true, or are you having trouble with it?
Yes, I think it's too good to be true. I don't think that. I appreciate it. I think it's devastating.
Oh, I do think it's devastating. I appreciate and understand why those who are studying it come up with these objections. They say, wait a minute, I've only refuted half a dozen of these worldviews. How am I ever going to get the whole job done? You say, wait a minute, you've misunderstood the program. You've only dealt with half a dozen illustrations. Every one of them is making the same point. So how often do you have to make that point, you know? And then the question is, well, maybe there could be another one. You say, you don't understand what a transcendental is if you think there could be another one. In the nature of the case, there can only be one transcendental. Okay, now that's two arguments against Van Til's transcendental argument. We'll see that, in a sense,